Call this workshop of November 15th to order. Let the record reflect that all board members are present. And at this time, could I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have a couple presentations. Up first, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jones.
Yep.
Hey, we'll start to give some feedback.
Oh, right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a couple presentations for you this afternoon. The first one is a college and career readiness presentation, an update of a presentation that we give yearly on some indicators that inform us about college and career readiness of our students at Powhatan High School. So I asked Dr. Alejandro to come up and lead us through this presentation. And Mr. Tibbs was available as well to talk about some of the career and technical education credentials.
Good afternoon. We are very proud of the work that we do to make sure that our students in Powhatan County are prepared from a college and career standpoint when they leave us. We do evaluate several different indicators to tell us where our students are as they leave us, and these are some examples of the things that we're going to go through today. Our graduation rates, the different type of diploma types that we have, the CTE work that we do, our increased dual enrollment and advanced placement opportunities, as well as current SAT results and trends. There are two types of graduation rates that I'm going to discuss today. The first one is the GCI. And the GCI is something that is used for our state accreditation. So as people are looking at the DOE report card, which has changed now to our school quality profile, they will find our graduation completion index. The way this is measured is they take a weight for each student based on the type of process they have finished by the time they leave us. So you can see the weights there. It's 100 for a student who gets a diploma versus 70 for someone who is just a completer. It also recognizes students who stay for a longer period of time, whether that's for exceptional education or a fifth-year student. And for us this past year, we were at 96%. That's an increase of 1% from the previous year. The state benchmark is 85, and you can see by the chart there that we've seen a steady increase in our GCI over the course of the last 4 years. Another graduation rate that is used is the on-time graduation rate. This actually takes into account whether a student actually received a diploma or not. So it's either it's an all or a nothing measure. And so it takes a look at all 6 diploma types that we have within the state. Again, providing additional time for special education students and students with limited English. They are also eligible. It does not include students who receive GEDs. And the statewide average for that is at 91.3, and again, Powhatan exceeds that at 94.9%. And the photo is a picture of last year's graduates as they were making their college plans. These are the types of diplomas that we issued for last year's graduating class. You'll see that 58% of our students received an advanced study diploma. Standard diploma was 33%. That advanced studies diploma means that students are completing at least 4 years of math, English, science, and social studies, along with 2 or 3 credits of exceptional ed, some CTE completer requirements as well. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Tibbs, who's going to talk a little bit about career and technical credentials.
I think Dr. Alejandro meant foreign language, not exceptional ed, on the 2 to 3 years.
I did. Thank you. Okay.
Good afternoon. Under the realm of CTE, we continue to work hard in terms of our offerings. We currently offer our 8th grade students high school level courses that changed a couple years ago. That is continuing. And then we also continue to look at our program areas in terms of how we can align them between the middle school now and the high school and provide students in the later years, junior, senior year, with opportunities as well. In this chart that you have in front of you, you can see that we did have an increase in all areas of state licensures, industry certifications, and workplace readiness. State licensures, the only area that we offer a state licensure at this point in time is in the area of cosmetology. The dip in 2014-15 was due to the change of the vendor for testing in certifying our students and getting them that state licensure. We did have many students that did retake that test over the summer last year and into the fall last year. Unfortunately, that was after the reporting window. We were able to achieve 2 more students, so we actually have 4 students that in 14-15. 15-16, we went back to our old vendor, the state cosmetology board, scratched the vendor that they had chose. The 14-15 year went back to the old vendor because it was a much more doable test for students, if you will, providing them with many opportunities and have more hands-on opportunities as opposed to multiple choice and things of that nature. So we saw an increase back to 10 last year. Industry certifications, this is an area that we have really focused on in terms of providing students in all of our program areas opportunities to get industry certifications in the area that they have studied for 2 years or more. Predominantly, the students taking these industry certifications are in the 11th grade or 12th grade year. Providing them another tool, what we tell them is it's a tool in their toolbox when they cross the stage and get their diploma. It provides them with certifications and credentials that they can then take to their, hopefully, potential employers and say, I'm certified in this particular area and I'm good, I've got the skill set that you need. Workplace readiness, we did see an increase last year from the year before, but if you'll look at 13-14, we had 95 students. That has dropped drastically because of our increased emphasis on getting industry certifications in our program areas. We did have some program areas several years ago that did not have an industry certification. We have researched and we have brought in those industry certifications because an industry certification really gives more of a picture and really gives the students more of an emphasis on what it is that they have learned. So our total credentials earned, again, we continue to increase. We had 382 last year. Students earning 1 or more credentials increased to 365. What that means is that we did have some students that typically are taking 2 different courses or 2 different CTE pathways, and they are finishing their hierarchy of courses, their CTE completer courses, and they are eligible to take their credentialing. Some of that number, some of the increase in that number does take into account the WISE financial literacy. Many and mostly all of our students that do take that WISE financial literacy test do pass that test. And so a lot of our juniors, some of our sophomores are taking the economics and personal finance course that is required by the state, and they are taking that subsequent WISE financial literacy test. So that is where they get the 2 credentials in that 1 year because they're oftentimes finishing up their program area as well. CTE completers, we had 201 students. Again, that kind of maintained from the previous year. We do recognize, and I'm working with the staff to develop ourselves and to put ourselves out there and promote ourselves because we recognize that oftentimes as students get higher up into high school, we are in direct competition with some of what Dr. Omohundra was talking about, which is the dual enrollment classes, advanced placement classes, things of that nature. So we're trying to re-energize ourselves and bring in some of our upper level students, some coursework that they would be interested in pursuing as well.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Tibbs, if you don't mind. So the industry certifications include WISE financial literacy?
They
is
do.
that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Where does the certified nursing assistant?
That
curriculum-
falls under industry certification as well.
Okay.
The unfortunate thing there is also that we oftentimes don't get the results back from that until the fall. So we got those results back just not too long ago.
Right.
So we are able to include those in the numbers for next year.
Next year.
Right.
I'm just one board member, but I'd like to see us separate out WISE financial literacy
Okay.
from the others because the WISE financial literacy, everybody's going to
Correct.
basically going to have to take that.
Okay.
So because I'd like to know and see, how many industry certifications beyond WISE financial literacy we're
Right.
getting.
And that's easy to do because the reporting, we have to separate them out
Okay.
when we report it to the State Department. So that's an easy number that we can certainly pull down.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a question too, Mr. Chairman.
Seymour, yes.
Mr. Tibbs, could you go back to the workplace readiness? And so you explained that the numbers went down because they didn't have the tests?
Now, workplace readiness, every CTE course has 21 competencies that was recognized by business and industry leaders, educators, and legislators, that there are 21 competencies that every student should learn. And so workplace readiness is an examination that we can give in lieu of an industry certification if we do not have an industry certification to offer in that area. And so 2013, 2014, we gave 95 workplace readiness assessments because there were some of our program areas, like in the area of technology, that we did not have an industry
Right.
certification to offer them, so we gave them the workplace readiness assessment.
And the
And-
number went down because we're having more certifications on the
Correct.
line
We were
above.
able to align our curriculums with industry certifications, and we're able to offer students industry certification tests in lieu of the workplace readiness. Really, the workplace readiness is just a skills assessment. It's just taking those 21 kind of soft skills that you recognize that you want employees to have, like communication skills and organizational skills and things like that, and just assessing students on that. Whereas an industry certification is a skill set certification. So like Culinary 3 students, when they take the industry certification, they're actually performing the skills, very similar to what a chef would do.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Another indicator for college and career readiness is our advanced placement program. We have a very strong advanced placement program at the high school, and you can see over the course of the last 3 years that the number of AP tests that students have taken have increased last year by 2%. AP course enrollment also is increasing. We saw a drop over the last 3 years in dual enrollment courses taken as we saw that increase in AP, but now with our ACA program, that we have our first group of students at the junior year, we anticipate next year to see that dual enrollment number creep back up again. We also have maintained fairly steady governor's school enrollment during that same time frame. Some things that we do to make sure that our students in advanced placement are prepared, we do have a single group within the high school of teachers that do AP preparation each month together. 6 of those AP teachers are AP readers, which is nationally recognized as one of the best professional developments. The teachers actually leave the school and go and read AP tests from across the country and help us assess students from across the country. It really gives them a good perspective of what AP tests should look like. Also, you can see that the number of students who take their corresponding AP exam, we exceed the number of, or the percentage at the state level. 89% of our students take their corresponding AP exam versus 78% across the state. There has been some discussion about why students should take it. We continue to encourage our students to take it because we believe that taking not only the course but the test makes sure that they're prepared for college. Also, we had 2 new courses last year, AP Human Geography and AP Biology. We're really excited to offer those. Human Geography is actually offered at the 9th grade level, so that's the first 9th grade AP course, and the majority of our students who took those brand new tests for us scored a 3, 4, or 5, which are qualifying scores. Always are opportunities for growth for advanced placement. We want to make sure that we're continuing to monitor the alignment of the curriculum at the AP level with what we're offering at the high school level. We want to make sure that our school counselors are well informed about how to prepare students to make sure that they're making the best decisions in their course selection, and then providing professional development for our teachers.
Excuse me,
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Alejandro. So how many, what is the total score? You said that they got 3, 4s, or 5s. How many out of what? How many?
So an AP test is scored at a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5,
Okay.
5 being the best.
Uh-huh.
And depending on what college or university you're attending, a qualifying score is anywhere from a 3, 4, or a 5. So some of the most elite colleges will say we will only take 4s or 5s. Some colleges won't take any of the scores, and some of them won't take more than 1 in a single content area. So that's sometimes why we see students who may not take the test. For example, they would have taken the English language class, which is an 11th grade class, and then they'll take the English lit class, which is a 12th grade class. But most schools don't take both AP tests for college credit, so they may choose to only take one of the AP tests.
I see, okay.
So it's really a case-by-case basis by
Uh-huh.
college or university on what they'll accept.
And I'd like to say I also like the part about the opportunities for growth of sharing what it takes to be successful with the students about being proactive and sharing that with the counselors. Thank you.
Thank you. SATs are also an indicator of readiness and more of an evaluation for universities to determine who is going to be accepted to schools, and we had a major change in the SAT last year. So our students who were seniors last year, some of them took the old SAT and some of them took the new SAT. The new SAT was implemented in March. Almost all of our current seniors took the new SAT beginning in March. So we should see some different results. This graph that I have here is really done at this point because it is a mix of the old SAT and the new SAT. We have continued to trend upward. We saw a few dips in all three subject areas, but again, we had a mixed batch of students, some of them taking the old SAT and some of them taking the new SAT. We saw 184 test takers. We are also seeing an increase in number of students taking the ACT as well. And then yes, ma'am.
So the writing scores, is this why we're having the emphasis on writing this year throughout the district?
It's a combination of factors. It's SAT performance, it's feedback that we're getting from teachers about quality of writing in our students, and it's SAT scores as well. So in general, it's an important skill in communicating, so we just wanted to make sure we had a clear focus on it K through 12, and it is an area that is a major focus for this year.
Okay, thank you.
And then the final slide is just kind of an FYI slide, and I think also speaks to the work that Powhatan County has done in advance of some changes that are going on at the state level. The state is working on a new profile of a graduate, and you'll see that there are really 4 components to the profile of a graduate. One is content knowledge, workplace skills, another is community engagement, and the final is career exploration. And by the statistics and the information that I just shared with you, you can see that we've had a focus on these areas, a strong focus on these areas for many years. So we feel like the state truly is coming in line with what we've already been doing in Powhatan County. So I think we're in pretty good shape.
Any other questions for Dr. Alejandro?
Questions or comments from the board?
Just that
Mr. Cole.
it's impressive. I mean, I like the data that you've put together. On your AP test and dual enrollment, is that a duplicated count or is that an unduplicated count of students there?
For course enrollment?
Yes.
For course enrollment, it is going to be so duplicated from the sense of, yes, if a student is taking AP Biology and AP English, they're going to be counted as two takers, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Walter, did you have any? No, sir. I want to commend you both for the job you're doing, and I think that Powhatan is doing an admirable job of providing multiple paths, college, non-college, career training. My growing concern, and this is not something that stems from Powhatan, my growing concern is the cost of college. And I'm wondering, it's out loud, on a state level, is there talk in education about letting the children know what they're in for and what is coming if they choose a path through college versus not? And to give you an example, Wells Fargo account manager has observed that the average four-year student from VCU, they're looking at between $100,000 and $120,000 in debt for when they graduate. And I've heard the term debt serfs is not a pleasant term, but what can we do? What can the state do to help educate children and parents in making a correct long-term decision? Because I don't think college is necessarily the answer for everyone. Education is important, but we need all facets of graduates. We need skilled trades. We need college graduates. What can we do? We're just wondering out loud to address that.
And I can answer a little bit out loud if you'd like. Mr. Cole is one of our career coaches at the high school, and he, as well as our school counselors, do programs throughout the year and say just what you've said, that there are many options for students out there for post-secondary, either education or work. And we share with them the information about the college costs that you're speaking of, and we share the information about the programs that Mr. Tibbs discussed and the pathways that they have for careers in those areas, not just jobs in those areas. So I think we try to do that as much as possible. Certainly there's always room for more of that, but we do want to make sure that our students know that there are lots of options available for them, and college isn't the only choice for students. We certainly want for those students who are able and interested in it to have that as their opportunity, but there are lots of other opportunities as well.
And I think you are seeing it at the state level, that profile of a graduate really, and the new high school redesign that will be rolled out in the next few months is all about career and college. So there is a realization that college isn't for everybody right away, as long as you're continuing your education and gaining the skills to have a good career, that you can be successful, and that may be the best route. It's coming, but it's going to be a slow sea change, because we all know that for generations, parents felt if their child didn't go to college, then they didn't have a chance of being successful. Not all parents, but a lot of parents. And there's still that mindset that if my child doesn't go to college, they're not going to be a successful adult. We know that's not true, because we know what plumbers and HVAC repairmen charge when they come to our houses to fix them, and we know that that can be a very good career, and there's multitudes of those. But it is going to take some time, I think, to change some mindsets on the behalf of some people, and that's our job, to help educate them that there are viable alternatives. Maybe community college, it may be technical training programs, as opposed to a four-year college where you are going to run up that amount of debt and maybe not have a skill set that translates to the workforce.
Thank you both. I agree, and it just, I think we got to do everything we can to make those choices clear for everybody.
One other question, if I can. In the financial literacy thing, do we talk about financing college in
That is one of the modules, yes.
Okay.
Those are, yes.
Because I think, it's a piece that I teach in the college course that I teach in the summertime, the Introduction to College course. And it's an eye-opening experience for some of those students, because they really have, until you get to a point in your high school career, you don't really think about how much it's going to cost, because your parents basically have borne the load, whatever it happened to be, for such a long time. So it's not only talking to students about that. I think part of it is also educating parents to begin that conversation early about what they can afford and what student debt does. So I agree with Dr. Jones. It's, every kid to college was our mindset for many, many years, and it's going to take a while to change that and stem the tide the other way. Every time you pick up the paper on Sunday, there is an article or two about the lack of skilled trade people out there, and the fact that many of the skilled trade people now are retiring, and there are multitudes of openings coming up, and we're not sure exactly where those people are going to come from. So I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the things that our CTE program does, and I'm very thankful every day that our CTE program is in our high school, where students can access it on a daily basis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next presentation that we have is another yearly report that we do, the update to our salary study and benefits. This is a joint effort from the Human Resources Department, led by Ms. Horn, as well as our Finance Department, led by Mr. Johns. So Mr. Johns has a presentation for you today that kind of highlights where we are and the impact that some of the moves that the board has chosen to do over the last few years has made. And then there's the full report that's also an attachment that has all of the data attached to it if you'd like to look through the more detailed report that is also available to you. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Johns to take us through the presentation.
Okay. Good evening. This report this year is in the same format as it was last year, so everything's going to look very familiar to each of you. But I'm very pleased with the results of this year's report, because it does show that the school board and Powhatan School Division has made good progress on how we rank with the comparing divisions in this study. I also want to thank Terry Allison for all the work that she did in collecting this data, contacting the school divisions, and assimilating and analyzing this for this report. As with last year, the purpose of this report is to just provide information on how our salaries compare with other divisions within our region, those divisions that surround us. Also to review the impact of the changes in our rankings as a result of the salary adjustments that have been approved by the board. It's to measure the effectiveness of those increases. This report is just one indicator of Powhatan's competitive ability to recruit and retain quality employees. Because salary is not the only recruiting and retention tool. Our goal has not been to be number one in all of these rankings, but instead to be at or near the median in each ranking. And as we go through this, I think you'll see we've made great progress in that. This next slide just shows the divisions that we are comparing ourselves with. There are 12 on this slide, and so it's a total of 13, including Powhatan. So our process is to first collect all the data from the surrounding divisions. Now, some of this data is available on their websites as far as salary scales and things like that, but some things you have to contact each division with questionnaire and so forth to find out what percentage increase they did and whether it applied to all employees. Was it done mid-year or at the beginning of the year, and questions like that. Once you have all that data, then we can update all of our rankings for this year. We then, again, have to convert all of our salary scales to an hourly rate because there are differences. There are contract differences. There were hours in the day differences. And so converting it to an hourly rate kind of is a more fair comparison than just salary. We also reviewed multi-year comparisons and updated the history of salary adjustments for all of the divisions. And then we did a comparison of the best, worst, and average rankings for both the salary and hourly scales. And just as a reminder, even doing all this and trying our best to be comparing apples to apples by using hourly rates, there are still a lot of variables that you just can't equalize. For example, many of the divisions have steps on the scales. Some have bands, even though like Richmond is trying to get away from bands. You have the contract days difference. For example, 12-month employees in Powhatan are on a 245-day contract, and most others are on a 260. Some employees on an 8-hour day, some are on 7.5 or 7.75. So you have to kind of equalize those things by going to hours. Steps on a scale. Some divisions may only have 20. Some may have 25, 35. Some may even have more than that. The placement on the scale is another variable. In Powhatan, we provide our employees the experience that they have when they come to us, and we'll place them on that step of the scale based upon the experience they have. Some divisions, when you go there, regardless of how much experience you have, they're only going to place you, for example, step 10 is the highest they're going to go, regardless. And so you do have variables like that. There are some jobs that don't have a scale. There are differences in job titles. Some jobs that, the job is the same, but the title is different. Supervisor versus director, director versus assistant superintendent, and things like that. So it's kind of hard to equalize those variables. Educational stipends are a difference as well. Some educational stipends are built into the scale. Others are a percent of the scale, like our teachers receive 5% for a master's, whereas your principals and other employees get a flat fee for masters. Some divisions, for a master's, they say that job requires that, so there is no stipend for it. It's built into the scale, and others give it. So there are some variables, and I just wanted to remind the board of those variables. So this report is as good as we can get at this time with the data, but it isn't perfect. But I think it does give you a really good idea of where we are. This slide is the history of salary adjustments. And we started in the 12-13 school year because that's the year that the 5% shift in VRS was mandated. At this point in time, everybody has fully implemented that. In fact, most people did it within a 2 to 3 year period. Now, for this scale, we had one school division that did not respond to our survey. So I really don't know exactly what that school division did. That's Louisa. But we did get the information for everyone else. And as you look down the scale, most of the divisions for this school year provided 2%. Chesterfield provided 3%. Powhatan provided a 2% minimum and a 5% maximum. So even on this scale, we did very good. This next chart is a new chart for this year. And what we did on this chart is we just took those percentages and added them up for the 5-year period and then ranked the divisions. And so using that methodology, Powhatan is ranked 3rd in this ranking, which is good. But I do want to point out one thing on that. Some school divisions provided step increases, and you can't really quantify that with a percent. For example, Cumberland had 3 years of step increases, and I don't know what that percent is. Louisa didn't respond to the survey, so I don't know what percent they provided this year. And even Powhatan. Last year, we provided targeted increases to some employees, but not all. Now, the teachers on average last year were 1.5%, but then you had principals, assistant principals, some mechanics and nurses and so forth that got higher percents. This year, we had a 2% minimum for everybody, but a lot of people got more than that and got 5%. So for some employees, if you were to take the real amount they got this year, for example, this 12.5 adds the 2% for this year, the 1.5 for last year, the 2.2 and so forth, and the 5 to come up with 12.5. But for some employees, if we were to add the 5% they got this year and 7% last year, they're going to be at the top of this chart. And so, I would hope that those employees would realize that, they are looking good compared to our neighbors. And, I wanted the board to realize that this is just a measurement, but we really, for some employees, did better than this.
And I just want to add and to point out that this is a chart that the school board should feel really proud of because it shows very clearly that the commitment to our employees and to compensating our employees fairly. I would hazard to say, and we'd have to go back and pull the exact numbers, but I would say probably a majority of our employees exceeded the 12.5%
Yes.
easily, and maybe at the top of the region in terms of gains that they've made over the last 5 years in their salary. So I think that's something to really celebrate. It's something that we need to make sure we share with our employees so they realize the standing that they've had and the gains that they've made over the last few years. It doesn't mean that there's not still work to be done, but in terms of targeting areas that needed assistance, the benefits are obvious when you look at this data.
Right, absolutely. Now, you've seen this slide also before. We showed it last year. The only difference this year, we separated these slides into those employee groups that improved in ranking, those that did not have a change, and those that decreased. And as you look down this list, the employees that the board had a concern about and wanted to increase did increase in rankings. Teachers last year were ranked 8 out of the 13th. This year, they've improved to 6. Your principals and assistant principals, they've all increased. Your administrative assistants, secretaries, food service staff, as well as some others, have all increased. And this is the majority of your employees here that, increase as far as number of employees. And so that is good. Now, this chart, the next chart, shows those groups that did not change in ranking. Now, some of the ones on this list did get 5% and still didn't change. One thing like drivers, I had hoped and expected there to be an improvement in those rankings. However, our surrounding neighbors are having trouble getting drivers as well, so everybody's focusing on the drivers. So, that's one area that we may still need to focus on. The next slide shows the one employee group that decreased in ranking, and that is our nurses. Now, our nurses really did not decrease in rank. What happened is Chesterfield added nurses, and they didn't have them before. So last year, when we were ranked 7th, it was 7 out of 10, 3 away from the lowest ranking. This year, we're ranked 8 out of 11. We're still 3 away from the lowest ranking. So in reality, the data shows they decreased in ranking, but we really didn't, because there's another school division that have nurses now. This next slide is good too, because it shows that we achieved one of the goals that the board had. What this slide is a multi-year comparison of the teachers' salaries by step. And so if you look at the column on the far right, the 2016-17 column, those rank numbers that are in yellow went down. Those numbers that are in green went up. So you had 8 steps that decreased in rank, but 25 increased and 3 did not change. But if you look where the 25 are that they increased, they're in the middle group, where we had the compression that the board wanted to address. And you can see that, we did that this year, and that's good. Now, you do have step 14 that went down 1, and sometimes it's just $1 difference that moves you from one ranking to the next. And so that one outlier I would not be concerned about, because I know it's just $1 or $2 sometimes. But as a whole, this is a good report. These next 2 slides, they're just a different way of looking at this same chart for a teacher, so I'm really not going to go over that. The slide for teachers, if you look at the detailed report, you'll see that, as well as these 2 slides for all employee groups, so you can look to see how each of them did, on the steps from year to year. Now, in closing, I think this data shows that Powhatan employees and the school board has achieved significant results in improving our rankings. And we did have one group that decreased, but in reality, it was because another group was added and another school division added nurses. We still have a lot of job types that are below the median, although those job types still have had good increases over the 5-year period. The salary adjustments are always challenging, and you never really know how you did until after you have done it and you are able to measure to see what other school divisions did. But hopefully this information will be useful to the board as we start in our budget process with the board next month and staff this month for the FY18 year. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. So, Mr. Johns, on the scale, it's on slide 11, and it may have been in the detailed information. If it was, I didn't see it, but in what step are the majority of your teachers clustered? I mean, are they equally distributed, or is there a concentration in a particular step? I know that the step doesn't necessarily relate to years of experience with our school district, but where are they situated?
We have employees. I mean, there's only, on the teacher scale, I don't know that there's a step that doesn't have somebody on it.
Okay.
And the majority of our employees are clustered in the middle. So, I mean, I do have that data. I just don't have it in front of me to tell you. But there's not, I don't know that there's a step without a teacher on it, to be honest with you. I don't remember there being. While on some of our other scales, there obviously are because we don't have that many employees in some other employee groups.
But the majority of the teachers are clustered in that area where we have now increased in rank?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Any other questions or comments?
It's a lot of data, and certainly I think I appreciate the hard work that's gone into that. I think we have, this data tells us really what's going on, not generally what we might hear and what we might feel. And I really do appreciate that because I think that enables us to make a better decision. The other thing I would say, in addition to the comments that were made a minute ago about 12% for most employees, a little more than that, is that we also have been, our insurance premiums, and I hate to say anything because we've had a good experience with insurance for the last 2 or 3 years, and whereas other divisions haven't. So I think in real buying power, I think we've probably done better than that 12%.
Absolutely.
Mr. Johns, is there a reason Louisa County didn't respond? This is all, I know they don't have to, but I noticed that they had lots of 1s and 2s on their teacher salary.
Yeah.
So I'd really be interested in knowing what their data has.
Well, we had the salary scales for Louisa, because so they were included in our comparison to know whether or not we increased or decreased.
Okay.
What we didn't have was their response to our survey to tell us the percent, what action they took with their employees this year to say we gave a 2% raise or we didn't, or we gave it mid-year or, beginning of the year and things like that. But Terry Allison had emailed them multiple times, called them, and they just didn't respond.
Okay.
And so we're fortunate in that we were able to get information from everybody. And last year we did get response for them in order to put this slide together. And there was one other school division that responded a week late after we had this report ready, and we had to go back and change some slides, but I'd rather do that and have the information. And if we do ever get a response from Louisa, we will update the slide.
I don't
Thank you,
recall
Mr. Johns.
Louisa being at the top or near the top or
Right,
even on the
right.
radar
Right.
last year.
They wouldn't have moved above us on that one slide anyway.
Well, no, their salaries were all ranked 1 or 2. They were all ranked 1 or 2.
Yeah.
They lost their director of HR, and they were really short-staffed.
Okay.
one more question if I could. So going back to the one where we had a decrease, how many employees do we actually have classified as school nurses? There's only a couple, right?
5.
Five total? Okay.
But again, they were a targeted group last year.
Right, I
And
understand.
got an increase this year. And, you know, had Chesterfield not added nurses, they would have been on the no change slide.
Right, and I would imagine with most school districts, that's probably a pretty small segment of their workforce.
yes.
So a couple employees can make a difference in their ranking based on compensation pretty easily.
Well, it's the scale that you're comparing, not necessarily the number of employees
Do
on
they
the
have
scale.
so you've equalized the scale for them as best you could?
On an hourly rate, yes, on an hourly rate. And it really, in comparing the scales, it doesn't matter how many people you have, it's just what do you pay?
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. The information is so valuable to have. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next item, I ask Mr. Johns to come back up to the mic. We have the CIP financial report for the month ending October 31st.
Okay. All right. We really did not have much change on the CIP report for the month of October. There were a few more payments to the architect on the middle school. We received bills for the demolition contract and did process 2 of those. We've since gotten another bill, but that'll be on the November report because that demolition contract is, for the most part, completed. Just a little bit of change on the water tower project. You know, we have had just a few expenditures on that, and not much change on the garage project either. So we've had just a few, as you can see, for this fiscal year. We've only had a few expenditures on the garage project, so not much change on that. But as the board is aware, both of the construction contracts have been worked out on those 2 projects. So we should start seeing in the next few months more changes to these reports. So.
Thank you.
All right, next item is our construction report for November 2016. I'll ask Mr. Wilson to come up. He's provided you with an update by school and by project of each of where we are and what has been happening this month. So I'll let him summarize that and answer any questions that you may have.
Good evening. First on the list was Powhatan Elementary School. Some of y'all might have seen that the parking has been affected with the fencing that was put around the middle school project. We coordinated that with the principal. Unbeknownst to us, we authorized Pocahontas Elementary School to park at the junior high school for a field trip last Friday, not realizing that it was Veterans Day and the Veterans Day celebration that Powhatan Elementary does. So it was interesting, but we survived that. The junior high school, the removal of surplus in the building at this point in time is 100% complete. As a part of that, we also got rid of the old wooden bleachers that were back on the ball fields. It was a pile of debris back there. All of that has been removed. That project is complete at this time. We signed a contract with Cambridge Construction on November the 1st. They have mobilized and have a job site trailer on site on the tennis courts. They're in the process of installing temporary power, water, and getting going on the project. Powhatan High School, The chiller did ship on November the 11th. It did arrive in Richmond today. It was scheduled to be installed today, but the crane that was going to take it from the truck and set it in place broke down on the way out here. So the chiller was returned to the yard to be offloaded and put on another truck, and they're going to try again tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have the crane in place. But in the interim, the rental chiller is still operating. McQuay has agreed to stop any further rental payments on that since it was through no fault of theirs that the time has been extended. And we're still waiting on the final decision from the insurer on the claim.
Excuse me, Mr. Wilson? So have they given you any kind of time frame or timeline about their decision?
The last conversation was that they had sent it up to management, and that was, I want to say last week or a week and a half ago, so we're waiting on that to come back from the management. I would expect it soon.
Thank you.
Junior high school, the field lighting, all the lighting is installed and completed. The old lighting has been removed. Right now, we're waiting on Dominion Virginia Power to run the underground line and install the meter, and then we'll test all the lighting, and that project will be completed. It looks a lot neater down there. I don't know if anybody has seen it, but it really cleaned up the look of the field. Also down there is another project that we're not doing, the county is doing, is installing new fencing on the baseball field, the backstop and the outfield fence, and that's a real nice improvement as well. So overall, it'll be a nice complex when it's done. Village Water Tower, plans are being finalized and continue to work on those. We received a revised schedule a week and a half ago, still shows them to have that completed by May of 2018, which is in line with their requirements for the middle school opening. The transportation maintenance facility, we had a pre-construction meeting last Friday with Daniel and Company. That went well. We received the contracts today, signed from Daniel and Company. We'll review them before Dr. Jones signs them. I met with the superintendent this morning, and they will probably start to mobilize up there Friday of this week with a job site trailer and start the site work process over on the adjacent property.
Ms. Wilson, could you give an update on our meeting with Ken Bridge to talk about site work that's being done at the junior high school and impact to the access to the ball fields and the work that we're working on that, just to give the board and the public an update on what that's going to look like?
Be glad to. We got some renderings from Timmons showing different scenarios of how we could access those play fields during the construction project. I met with Ms. Deal earlier this week. I met today with Mary Ann Woodall with Parks and Rec from the county to share those drawings, to get their input. We've got a couple of different iterations of what could be done and how we could function with that. We need to share that with the contractor and get them to agree that that will work within their scheme of how they're going to approach the project. But the primary thing I think that will happen from these meetings and from these renderings that we have is the driveway that goes in now straight into where the field and the ticket booth is. There will be an alleyway or roadway path with fencing on both sides that will remain a thoroughfare for the field usage for people to drop off, elderly people or disabled, go down and turn around and come back out and park. Parking, depending on what phase of the contract we're in, will be limited to a portion of the junior high parking lot that is on the east end of the site, closer to the elementary school. That small lot over there on the front will remain accessible. And the east end staff parking lot on the far side of Powhatan Elementary School. The back parking lot behind Powhatan Elementary School is being converted to tennis courts, and it's also the location of a stormwater management basin. So a big hole in the ground to collect storm runoff. So the access coming from that east parking lot and the elementary school and the front parking lot at the junior high school is where we're running into some logistical questions about how it will impact the contractor and what works best for them. What we're trying to avoid is having to have the people in that east end parking lot having to walk all the way across the site back down to that main entrance and into the ticket booth. I mean, you're looking at over half a mile to get to the baseball field if you park there and walk, which for some people is going to be impossible. The other area that is a parking, it's a grassed area, but they've been parking there is for the baseball field out between left field and where that paved area is for the basketball courts. And that can be used with parking. And Ms. Woodle and I spoke today about that. When we opened the high school, we had that same issue because of the 21 steps from top to bottom there. And we ended up adding handicap parking down on the lower tiers for handicapped people. What you run into there, the possibility you run into there is grandma and grandpa have their handicap decal or the thing to hang on your mirror, and the son or daughter borrows it to come to the ball game so they can park up close to the field. And you end up using up all those spaces, and the person that really needs it could get cut out of it. So we just talked about it. We didn't come to any resolution whether that would be a requirement or how that would be handled. Baseball season, it works fairly well. Football season, it gets a little bit more tricky because of the weather changes. When the ground gets damp, it tends to stay damp longer, and then you start getting cars stuck in mud because it isn't stone. I mean, it is just dirt down there. But it is being looked into. We've got all the players looking into it, that it should affect. Ms. Woodle, I think, is going to be talking with her superiors, and then I think meeting with the PYAA to get their input as to what they think and the number of parking spots available. She had indicated that they had discussed even moving some of the games to Blessed Sacrament to avoid any conflict with the parking there. So again, today was the first conversation we had, and first time I showed drawings. And again, the drawings have not been shared with the general contractor, and it has to be a team effort so that we don't interfere with them getting the project completed on time and having a cost impact on what they're trying to approach. But it is written into the contract that we will have field access during the project.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Wilson.
Could I ask a couple questions? Is that okay? So what are we doing? Don't we still have some either varsity or JV sports that play on that field as well? Like, I know that at one point soccer played there, our actual soccer team played there. I thought we had some other school activities there as well. What are we doing for those?
Lacrosse plays up there
Okay.
for their sports, and then the middle school uses the field for soccer, track, baseball, and softball use those fields.
Okay. So they'll
That's
still have access to those fields. That one run access point there to the far west side of the school will be open for our buses to go drop the students off.
Okay.
Our players, there'll still be access for coaches to get in there, and we'll have the access for the fans. But certainly, it's not going to be as convenient as just parking behind the junior high, which it has been done. And, you know, we'll communicate that when the spring season starts, and hopefully work out with the contractor the best access that we can and inconvenience those families and patrons as little as we can. And also communicate to them that this whole site's being redone. There's parking lots that are being redone, store management that has to be done, and there's going to be a huge impact, not just on the building itself, but we will continue to look at that and to minimize that as much as we can without delaying the project, which is our ultimate goal.
Okay. I know that there was a lot of discussion as we talked about and as the Board of Supervisors talked about this project, that the public would continue to have access to those fields, and I at least was asked that quite a bit about how that would limit walkers and people using the softball field, the baseball field, the football fields for various things. I think it's important in some fashion that we figure out a way to convey that to the public, and maybe our friends in the media could help us with that. But in some fashion, I think that the public needs to understand that this, and I commend you, because I think everything you've talked about is the right way to do this, investing the stakeholders in the process, that sort of thing. But in some fashion, it sounds a little different maybe than the manner in which we talked about it previously.
Right.
And I think it would be good if we could convey that to the public so they know what to expect.
My suggestion would be is once we have a chance to finalize some site maps of where parking is going to be and what access is going to look like both for handicap, the teams, and for patrons, that we'll go ahead and publicize those and get them out either through Powhatan Today or our websites or through PYAA and the different organizations that are using it, our middle school athletics teams, the high school lacrosse team, and we can give those out so people know exactly where to park and where the access is to get to the fields and where they can walk and where they can't.
Okay, and I apologize, I don't remember who asked me this question exactly, but at some point, I was asked about the lacrosse program, the visiting buses and things. It was told to me that there are challenges sometimes with parking the buses already in the existing spaces available with family and visitors and folks that come and watch the sport.
Right.
So I guess in just thinking about what Mr. Wilson described, it seems that that's going to add quite a bit of logistical challenges to that process, but I'm sure the staff can manage that.
Yep.
As long as the public knows what to expect.
Sure.
So-
And we can find places for them to park off-site, even if it's at the bus garage area, and so they're not taking up valuable parking spaces with buses that aren't carrying any students or just waiting to pick up students.
Okay, and I appreciate you discussing that in detail. Thank you. I think that that's a discussion worth having, and I would like to ask another question, if I could, about the transportation facility.
Yes, sir.
That would be all right. And I think it seems that we're well on path. When should we reasonably expect to see something happening at the site itself, with the older structure that I guess will have to be demolished in the early stages of this?
Probably Monday,
Really?
yes.
Okay.
By
Yeah, the
older
site contractor is supposed to be on site Friday, and if they get up there, the first thing they're going to do is clear a pathway down the western fence line of the existing bus shop, because that's where Daniels wants to put their trailer, on that back left-hand corner of the site.
Okay.
And once they do that, we'll have a meeting. They're trying to set it up for this week with the county for the erosion and sediment control. Once they get the E&S in place, they can start tearing the building down, clearing the trees. And
The building to the right that was formerly some other use?
The
of
meat locker.
Meat locker, there you
Yes.
go. Okay, all right. Thank you, sir. That's all that I had. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
Last item that I have for the workshop is just to receive information. We, as you know, have a joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors on November the 29th, and to go forward in that meeting, knowing that we need additional funding for the joint transportation facility. At the 7 o'clock meeting, we're going to ask you to formally request additional appropriations to fund the difference in this project. And the amount is in there that we gave you at the last meeting, but we're asking for those funds to be approved ahead of that meeting so that if there is a resolution at the meeting on the 29th, we don't have to come back at the next board meeting, do the request for appropriation, and then wait another month for the Board of Supervisors to approve it. So we're just trying to be proactive in requesting this funding, and we can certainly talk with the Board of Supervisors, and it ultimately will be their decision with our input on where those funds come from. So that's just information about why we're asking you to approve that at the 7 o'clock meeting.
Okay. Any questions about that resolution?
So all of the items that you had to take out are the ones that are listed here, and they will all be put back in?
All of the ones that we didn't value engineer out, that we could save money on and not reduce the scope or the ability to complete the work in the project. There were some of those items in the chart that Mr. Johns shared with you at the last meeting that we decided not to do, lowering the fence from 8 feet to 6 feet, and there were some savings there. There were a couple other things, but all the equipment that we had to take out, the metal lockers, the lift, all those things, that's what this would fund, all of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this brings us to a public comment period. If there's anyone wishing to address the board on any items, there's a 3-minute time limit per individual, 5 minutes per group. If you do approach the podium, please state your name and address for the record. And seeing no movement, I will close the public comment period. This brings us to some closed session items. Mr. Cole, can you make a motion to take us into closed session?
Mr. Chairman, I recommend we enter into closed session pursuant to Code 2.2-37A1 to discuss the employment, resignation, and leave of specific employees, pursuant to Code 2.2-3711A2 and A4 to discuss the expulsion and school placement of specific students, and pursuant to Code 22.1-60.1 to discuss the evaluation of the superintendent. So it's codes 2.2-3711A1, A2, and A4, and code 22.1-60.1.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're in closed session until further notice.